Well, hello and Happy New Year, everyone. I didn't do a backyard. I think a couple of people suggested doing a backyard conspiracy roundup, but there's not really very much going on, so I just thought I'd record a little bit as I'm sort of driving around in the West Australian bush. This is not really the outback. It's probably classed as the bush. It's pretty sparsely populated. But what I will do, I'll just make a few comments on some of the stuff I've seen recently. Poor old Ben Emlyn-Jones, he's so desperate for all this stuff to be true. Only the first week in January he was saying, oh, I've got a good feeling about next year. So he's talking about 2021, presumably. 2021 will be the year of disclosure. And of course it won't be, because there's nothing to disclose. And he says, yes, I know that people have parts of recovered spacecraft. Oh, no, he doesn't. No, that might be his opinion. But he certainly doesn't know that. Poor old dead Roo here. And he says free energy's real, but he's clutching at straws. You know, if he presents any actual cases, they can easily be dismissed. Last time he mentioned Stan Mayo, was it? And I'll put a thing up there. You know, his water-powered car was a fraud. Every time someone from the professor of engineering went to have a look at it, some excuse was made so he couldn't inspect it. When he died, the time limit ran out on all his patents. None of them were picked up. And his super duper electrolysis arrangement was found to be nothing other than a normal electrolysis arrangement. He had to pay some investors $25,000 back before he died, of course, because he was a fraud. So there's no such thing as free energy. No one's got any alien biology or technology. Doesn't matter how desperately Ben Emlyn-Jones wants this to be true, it just isn't. He sits there and goes, I know, it's true, I know. That people have got bits of recovered spacecraft. I know. He doesn't know. That may be his opinion, but he doesn't know. I mean, I think the galaxy is quite likely to have quite a few intelligent, technologically advanced species. I don't know that, but I believe that's likely. And there's certainly going to be some out in the universe. But I think there's certainly going to be some in this galaxy. Whether or not they come here from time to time to keep an eye on us, nobody knows for sure. There's nothing to disclose. As I said, no one's got any ET, biology or technology. Now, I was looking around at some of the things that are on the net, and hang on a second, I did make a couple of notes here. Reading notes while I'm going on. Yeah, that's right. I had a look at Matthew Williams' channel, The Secret Vault, and he's looking around Rudloe Manor, which is a closed-down defence establishment. He's walking around the building, and most of it's derelict. He didn't comment on the fact that one of the rooms that he went into actually looked like it was being refurbished. It looked like it had a new floor. He didn't mention that. But supposedly there's some ET stuff was going on at Rudloe Manor. They're investigating ETs. They've had aliens there working on crash flying saucers under the ground. It's basically the Area 51 story transposed to Rudloe Manor. And I think it's even, I've even seen videos called, the UK's Area 51, Rudloe Manor. Well, it's not. It's nothing like Area 51. During the Second World War, it was a Bristol aircraft company. It used to make aircraft underground there, so there are some significant underground facilities there. And I think Matthew Williams and some other guys exploring with fighters. I don't know where the fighting comes in, but exploring with fighters, they went to have a look at it. And they walked for 3 hours through these old quarry workings under the ground to get to this red metal door. And there's a camera there, and there's a couple of infrared spotlights on the camera. So whoever's looking after the facility, the security of the facility, will be looking at them through the camera. You know, they don't want anybody going in through that back door, getting into the actual facility itself. Whatever it is, it's not going to have anything to do with aliens or ET. And it's just an MOD installation, and they want to keep the public out, which is perfectly reasonable. And these guys were saying, oh, there's a red door, you listen to that, there's a fan running behind it. Now, it could have been a fan. If they could have found that spot on the surface, they could have had a look to see if there was a vent, you know, some exhaust air coming out, I suppose, but it's more likely to be a sump pump, probably. Pump in there, you know, keeping any water that's getting into the bit they want to use out of it. Although having said that, I didn't see any water in the bit that they walked through, that Williams and Co walked through. But and they Williams went and had a look at another disused military installation. I mean, these guys are wasting their time running around looking at these Cold War bunkers and disused military installations. If the UK had any ET technology, and I don't for a minute think they do have, they would take it to Australia. They'd take it to Woomera and test it there. I mean, historically, that's where the UK, where England has tested its missiles and rockets, because England's not a big enough place, you know. They take it to Woomera, because Woomera is the biggest military test site on the face of the earth. It's bigger than Area 51. It's in the middle of nowhere, so there's no prying eyes around, and you can fly stuff around there and no one will be any the wiser. No one could get close enough to what you were doing. I read something about this, the British government investigating UFOs, and it said that that side of things, if they think there's something that's worth looking at, they don't do it themselves. They don't have their own agents that go out and look at this stuff. It's managed by, I think, DI-55, but it's actually contracted out to a trusted large defence contractor. Now that is going to be British Aerospace, BAE Systems, if anyone's looking at that on behalf of the government. So they would be reporting to DI-55 on what they find if there's an interesting case and they look into it. BAE Systems have been testing something called Tyrannus, which is an unmanned combat drone. Now I'll leave a link below if I can find the video about Tyrannus, but you know, it's quite a nice science fiction-y looking device. If Matthew Williams and Co could find one of those in a shed in the UK, they might be close to anything the government might have to do with UFOs. And again, I reiterate that I don't believe for a minute that the UK government or any other government has any ET material, certainly not craft or biology. But anyway, the Tyrannus, if you look at the video of the Tyrannus, you'll see that the backdrop of the Tyrannus looks very much like outback Australia to me. I think they're testing, BAE Systems are testing the Tyrannus at Woomera. So if there was going to be any kind of, and obviously they've got to get it there, it's a fairly big device, big machine. It must have been taken there on a ship, I suppose, and then transported up to Woomera. I can't imagine they flew it there, but you never know. That's what they would do if they had any alien technology and they wanted to look at it. they'd get it a long way away from the UK. It would be in the middle of nowhere in Woomera in South Australia. There's a couple of things that I was going to mention. That was one of them. What was the other thing? And poor old Ben, so desperately wanting all this stuff to be true. A bit of paper. Oh yeah, I watched another doco with Matthew Williams, and he was giving a talk about this Rudloe Manor, and he'd found this memo, this MOD memo from, I think it was 1956 or might have been 1960 even. And he was saying about the, how UFO reports would be dealt with, and civilian reports would be responded to in writing. Any military reports would have been given more weight. They would have paid more attention to any reports coming in from the military, and they were particularly interested in anything that could fly above 60,000 feet. And what Matthew Williams said was, and that was because at the time we didn't have anything that would fly above 60,000 feet. Now, I'm assuming he means, when he says we, I'm assuming he means nations on Earth rather than the UK. Certainly the U-2 was flying. Started flying in 1955. The U-2 spy plane. I mean, that could do 850 knots or so, maybe more. I can't remember now. But it could fly up to 70,000 feet. And it probably occurred to the British government that if the Americans have got a spy plane that can fly at 70,000 feet, 800 kilometers an hour or so. Then the Russians may very well have something very similar. So I think their primary interest there would have been, do the Russians have a spy plane? Are the Russians spying on the UK from high altitude aircraft, just like America is spying on Russia with high altitude aircraft? Matthew Williams is trying to give the impression this is something special and unusual. They're looking for ET. Well, no, they're not looking for ET. They're looking for spy planes built on Earth. But like all of these conspiracy theories, they always need to sort of enhance, they need to create a bit of intrigue. They need to give you the impression that something is happening when nothing is happening. That's the bottom line. Nothing is happening. So 2 minutes worth of Googling, Matthew Williams would have found out that we do have aircraft that can fly above 60,000 feet at that time. Very poorly researched, like Ben Emlyn-Jones. He watches my videos and then he either doesn't understand what I'm saying, or he sort of skips over it, and he gets to where I'm about to make a point and then starts talking, and then moves on to the next bit. So it's very poorly done, very poorly researched, these conspiracy theorists. What else have I got here? Not much, really. I had a look at, I haven't had a look at Richard Dolan. I had a look at Richard D. Hall, who's done a Rendlesham thing. Now, Richard D. Hall has come to the conclusion that Rendlesham was a load of rubbish, a pack of lies. I think it was too. It's they may not have been lying about the strange lights they saw moving among the trees, but there's certainly no structured craft, no aliens running around. It's all bloody nonsense. Penniston was the only one that said that he saw a structured craft. Penniston, as we know, is a fantasist. He's come up with this recently. He's come up with this binary and this high Brazil stuff, and he said that the craft was on the ground on one of those nights when he was there for 45 minutes. Now. If a structured alien vehicle was sitting on the ground for 45 minutes, everyone and his dog would have gone and had a look at it, taken photographs of it, everyone would have known about it. Penniston is the only one that claims to have seen a structured craft. So I think you can put a line through that. And Holt, when Holt wrote his memo, remember he didn't expect the public to be reading that memo? He mentioned strange lights in the forest. He never mentioned anything about a structured vehicle. He was trying to attract the attention of the MOD. Now, if he'd have seen a structured craft, and he'd said he'd seen a structured craft sitting on the ground, that certainly would have attracted their attention. There's no mention of that. I saw there was a guy that said he was a radar operator in the RAF at Neatishead, and he said that I'd never seen this before. It looks like quite an old presentation, and he said that he was off duty on that night, but when he returned for duty, I don't know, during the day or whatever his next shift was, he said they were all buzzing, they were all talking about it. Now, first of all, there's a couple of points here. One is, he said the government said there were no radar tapes, there was no videotape of the radars or something like that, but there was. And the other thing he said was that it was all a buzz. They were all talking about it at the Neatishead radio station, which is a military air surveillance radar. It's not a traffic control radar. It's looking for anything intruding into the UK airspace, like Russian aircraft, typically. Now, I find the story difficult to believe because if it was a buzz, he would have remembered details. He would have asked details like, you know, did you see this thing on the radar? You know, how fast was it going? Was it zigzagging around? Was it manoeuvring unusually? Was it hovering? You know, he would have asked a series of questions. There's no mention of that. You know, it was a buzz, but he doesn't say, well, yeah, they were saying this thing was doing 20,000 miles an hour, and then it just stopped, and then it just went straight up and then stopped, and then it comes straight back down again and stopped. There's none of that. There's, oh yeah, it was a buzz with it, but there's no detail. And I think if I was a radar operator at that radar station, I would have said, well, tell me all about it. You know, was it manoeuvring unusually? Was it travelling particularly fast? Was it hovering? I would have asked all these questions. And there's none of that, and I think that tells us that it never happened. You know, there's probably a bit of embellishment there. It may be that there were radar tapes, and it may be that they were taken away. But that may have occurred after Holt's memo, because the MOD might have been completely unaware of it, and they may have just said, okay, well, let's just have a look at the radar tapes for that night, let's go and get them, let's have a look at them, and let's see what we can see. It might be as simple as that. The other thing too, of course, is that if this was an alien probe and it had come to look at the nuclear bases, why just manoeuvre around in some trees between them? You know, why not? If it was alien technology, no one on Earth would have been able to do anything about it or to prevent it. Why didn't it just go around over the base, you know, up and down the runway, go over the buildings, scan the buildings? Holt says that it shot a beam down into the nuclear weapons storage area, but that was an embellishment. There was no mention of that until quite some time afterwards. That's just to beef the story up. So why didn't this thing have a look around one base, fly up and down and round on one of the bases, on Woodbridge, and then just hop over the road, hop over the forest and do the same thing at Bentwaters? You know, why not? Why just manoeuvre around between trees, and then why? And then it just evaporated as though it wasn't a solid substance at all. People claim there was liquid metal pouring off it. No one said anything about collecting any samples of this metal once it had cooled, did they? You know, I think it's nonsense, the Rendlesham story, to be honest. I think they were spooked by something. Personally, I suspect the high power medium frequency radio station at Orford Ness, very, very high power. You know, you've got big electromagnetic field changing in amplitude rapidly, damp air, and I think something could have gone wrong with that, because all the energy from that was beamed towards Eastern Europe. If they had a problem with the antenna system, you could have just beamed all that energy, millions of watts of peak energy, into the forest, and it could have created some strange effects. And I think that's a far more likely scenario than a visit from aliens. makes no sense whatsoever. Yes, I've said it before, but yeah, I don't think the Rendlesham incident was an ET related thing, and I don't think there's any evidence whatsoever to support that, regardless of the science fiction tales you hear from different individuals who might be interested in making a quid out of it. You know? So that was Rendlesham. And the radar tapes, I haven't seen that guy since, actually, so people might have asked him questions like that and he might have thought, well, you know. Oh, another interesting thing about Matthew Williams, I fell about laughing. He looked and sounded completely different for a start, but what he was saying was what got him into UFOs in the first place was he had his own experience. He was walking in the mountains in Wales or something, and he saw this big black triangle, and it was just motionless in the air, and telling this tale, you know. And then he goes on to say, he said, of course, I didn't actually remember it until a week later. Now, anyone is going to remember something like that, aren't they? And he said, and you know, whether it was just in my head or whether it was real, I don't know. So, you know, what's the point? If you don't remember it till a week later, you're imagining it. It's not real, is it? It's just nonsense. So anyway, Matthew Williams and the Exploring with Fighters and these other guys that are running around looking for ET and in these underground bases in the UK are completely wasting their time. Absolute waste of time. Right, what else have we got here? Oh, not much really. Just the only other thing I saw was that Miles Johnston was spruiking the 5G is going to kill us all rubbish. It looks like the rest of the 5G Muppets have sort of disappeared back into the woodwork, haven't they? The guy with the silly little printed circuit board with the 2000 watt relay on it. Nothing on that board is going to generate any microwave, certainly any kind of power. You know, if you take a look at a magnetron out of a microwave oven, 2.4 gigs, they generate about 1,000 watts. It's about a 4-inch cube. The power supply to run that's quite significant. You know, you can transform it around the heaters, thermionic devices. You got to heat them up, got heating elements in them, and you need a lot of voltage as well. You know, there's absolutely no way that piddly little circuit board. Anyway, there was no sign of a magnetron, there was no sign of a microwave power device. Absolute bloody rubbish. It's the blind leading the blind. He doesn't know what he's looking at. And the people watching him going, oh yeah, look at that 2,000 watt relay. Know nothing whatsoever about it either. You know? So forget these 5G's going to kill us all idiots. It's nonsense. Got 5G here in Australia now. The only thing people have noticed is that their mobile devices are faster. You know, you got faster, you got better data rates. It's not going to kill anyone. The lampposts aren't going to kill you. If you go to go to a presentation of one of these idiots, just say, well, you know, if all this is so dangerous, why are you living in a 5G area, and why are you living with a lamppost, you know, close to your house or in your street? Why don't you move out in the country where there's no lampposts? If they're that dangerous, they're going to kill you. Why live near lampposts? Why walk your dog around under lampposts? You know? Why walk around the block under lampposts with your Fitbit? Absolute bloody rubbish. Miles Johnston's output is absolute rubbish from start to finish. There's nothing in there that contains any fact at all. You know, secret space program fantasist says there's an alien spacecraft buried under that hill. They've run with that as truth. Secret space program fantasist says Hangar 45. Oh yeah, it's a top secret military establishment, you know, ET related, doing ET research, and it's a concrete company making prefab, pre-stressed concrete, what do they call it, culverts and staircases and what have you. Absolute bloody rubbish. And these conspiracy idiots embrace it as truth. And they air it, they publish this stuff as truth, and it's nonsense. And the other thing that Miles Johnson's been spruiking lately is this Tesla cold steam turbine. He said nobody's noticed because it was split into 2 separate patents. It hasn't been suppressed, but anyone can look at these patents. There's one thing I can guarantee you: the Tesla cold steam turbine is not going to be producing power out of thin air. It's not going to be flying either. I guarantee it. Remember that we had a free energy nut at work 10 years ago. And I said, it's not going to work in 5 years, it's not going to work in 10 years, it's never going to work because it can't be done. And of course his free energy device is still not working. So I can guarantee you in 5 years' time there's not going to be a free energy device working. You know, the Tesla cold steam turbine is not going to be producing power out of thin air. I guarantee it. It's not going to be doing it in 10 years' time, or 100 years' time, or 1,000 years' time, because it's bloody nonsense. And if you look at the video for the Tesla steam turbine, where they're begging for money, of course they're always on the cusp, you know, of making this work and releasing all the details so everyone can make one. But they just need your cash to get them over the edge. You know, you just need your money. And if you look back in the history of all these free energy devices, it's always exactly the same. They always need your money to get it over the line, to get it to work. It's almost there. Every time it's almost there. It's just a bit more development work is required. And yeah, so forget the Tesla steam turbine. For goodness sake, don't put any money into it. If you look at the video, there's a transparent perspex box with the Tesla turbine running in it, and it's standing on top of an opaque wooden box. It's got a shaft sticking out of it, and there's a belt going over the shaft up to the Tesla turbine. And the impression you get is the Tesla turbine is turning the shaft. In fact, there's probably either a flywheel inside the wooden box, and they've spun up, that's turning the Tesla turbine, or there's a motor in there. Ask yourself, why is the Tesla turbine in a transparent perspex box, and why is what it's connected to in an opaque wooden box so you can't see what's in there? Ask yourself why that is. Miles Johnson is saying, oh, you know, this technology, this cold steam turbine, you know, it's going to fly. It's so easy, you know. It's going to be producing power, and they've got a couple of water cocks and a couple of water pipes going into this perspex box. It's pathetic, it's nonsense, it's rubbish, it's a con. And if you Google the free energy people that have been doing this stuff for years and years and years, it's the same story over and over and over again. They get it working, but someone breaks in and steals it, or, you know, destroys their lab, so they need a lot more of your money to make another one. It's absolute nonsense. And there was one other point I was going to make. What the hell was that? It's just gone right out of my head. Oh yeah, Ben Emlyn-Jones will say, well, there's lots of other ways you can scam people. You know, you don't need to do it with free energy devices. But there's all sorts of scams, isn't there? Right? People will try scamming you using what they know about. If they know a bit about electronics and a bit about they can make a convincing prop that they can make a video out of, and that they can get some people to put some money in. That's how it works. I mean, when we had this free energy nut at work, I said, and he said, do you want to come along and see this free energy device running? And I said, would I be allowed to inspect it? And he said, no. He said, you'd have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And I said, would I be allowed to inspect it? And he said, no. And I said, well, I wouldn't waste my time. And he showed me a video of this thing, and I said I could make something that would do exactly what that is doing. You know, you tilt it. So I think it's supposed to be working from the Earth's magnetic field or something. You had this little toroidal coil type arrangement with a lamp on it, and you tilt it at a certain angle and it lit up. I said I could make something that does that. It would look like that, it would do exactly that. And he said, if you can do that, I'll give you $10,000. I'll give you $10,000 for it. That was it. So I said, well, I said, okay, we'll put 10 grand in an escrow account, and actually I need to, yeah, I'll just park up here for a second, finish the video. I need to look at the map. And I said, yeah, put the 10 grand in an escrow account before I lift a soldering iron, and I'll make you one of those things. And he said, you know I'm good for it. He's got the integrity of a... he's got zero integrity, right? So it's not going to happen. But that tells you that he wants a prop to make his own video. He would... He wants a fake free energy device that he can use to make a video, so that he can ask people for investment money and go through the same old story. He needs development money, going to release the information, make it freely available to all, but he needs your money to get it over the line. And it's the same with every single one of these free energy cons. There is not one free energy thing out there that is not a con, because free energy is not real. Nothing is free in nature. Well, I think that's about it. I'm not sitting in my back garden doing a conspiracy roundup, but that's sort of something like it, I suppose. I haven't looked at Joe from the Carolinas for ages, or Richard Dolan. The dark journalist, you can forget all about that guy. You know, Pine Gap's doing ET research. Absolute rubbish. Timothy Good for the same reason. Absolute drivel. Nothing ET related going on Pine Gap. I don't think I looked at anybody else. I've given up with Greer. So yeah, I think that'll do for now. As always, thanks for watching.